This is an ordinary cardboard egg tray. Trays like this are normally used to protect and transport chicken eggs, but they are also widely used for keeping and breeding cockroaches. Most egg trays are made from recycled cardboard and different types of paper. Because of that, they absorb small amounts of excess moisture, while the rough surface gives the insects something they can easily grip with their feet. The deep pockets also create many dark hiding places, which is exactly what cockroaches prefer. Feeder cockroaches are raised as food for predatory pets such as lizards, frogs, spiders, and other insect-eating animals. This is what a typical feeder roach container looks like. Inside, there are several egg trays, usually placed vertically or stacked together, along with small pieces of vegetables for food and moisture. The trays increase the usable surface area and give the insects plenty of places to hide. For this type of setup, Turkestan cockroaches are one of the most convenient species. They are hardy, easy to care for, and even if a few escape inside your home, they are much less likely to reproduce there than German cockroaches. Another major advantage is that Turkestan cockroaches cannot climb clean, smooth glass. That makes the colony much easier to contain, although using a secure lid is still a good idea. A simple container with egg trays works perfectly well. But today, we are going to make something much more unusual: an entire miniature village for cockroaches. For this project, I printed several paper templates that can be used to build different houses and even a real bridge. Similar templates can be found online by searching for 3D pen house templates or miniature house patterns. Before printing, you can resize them to fit your future terrarium. I arranged mine on standard letter-size sheets. First, we cut out the printed houses. For this, I am using a precision craft knife, which makes it easier to follow small corners and narrow details. Using these paper templates, all the required dimensions can be transferred onto a sheet of foamed plastic. This saves time and helps the matching walls remain the same size. For the buildings, I am using hypoallergenic foamed PVC plastic that is 3 millimeters thick. It is lightweight, easy to cut, and rigid enough to hold its shape. It can also be glued and painted, so it is a very convenient material for miniature construction. In fact, you can use it to build almost anything, even an entire village. And for a village, we are going to need a lot of houses. Whew! Now every wall, roof panel, door, and decorative piece has to be cut from the plastic with a craft knife. If you are a beginner builder, remember that even a simple house needs at least 4 walls and 2 roof pieces. That means every house requires a minimum of 6 separate parts, and buildings with extra details need even more. A single piece does not take long to cut, but after repeating the process again and again, the number of parts grows very quickly. Finally, everything is cut out. This is how many individual pieces I ended up with. Before using glue, I am checking whether the matching walls and roof panels fit together properly. A small error in one angle can create a noticeable gap after the building is assembled. Everything seems to fit. Now all these flat pieces need to be glued together to create the shape of a house. Before assembling the first one, I am cutting a doorway into one wall. I will keep the piece that comes out and glue it back onto the outside at an angle. This creates the effect of an open door. I almost forgot an important step. For better adhesion, the edges of every piece should be lightly sanded. The plastic is quite smooth, and roughening the contact areas gives the glue a better surface to grip. Now we can begin assembling the house. The first 2 walls need to be held at a right angle while the glue starts to set. Then the remaining walls and roof can be attached one at a time. The structure feels fragile at first, but it becomes much stronger after all the pieces are connected. And of course, we cannot forget to attach the open door. Using these simple techniques, we get a neat little house. To make it look more realistic, I am adding a tiny window frame and a small awning above the entrance. These details are not necessary for the cockroaches, but they make a plain plastic box look like a real miniature building. The finished window is glued onto one of the walls. And finally, our first house is almost complete. Now it needs to be painted. Acrylic paint works well for this project because it dries quickly and covers the plastic easily. Almost any color can be used. To make the window look as though warm light is coming from inside, I am painting the center of the frame a bright lemon yellow color. When working on something this small, it is easy to touch the outer frame by accident. But once the yellow paint dries, any mistake can simply be covered again with white. Now the same process needs to be repeated several more times. Cutting, sanding, gluing, adding the roof, attaching the details and painting. I tried to make every house look different. Some are larger, some are smaller, and a few of them even have miniature balconies. But houses alone will not be enough for this project. I also want to build a bridge leading to the opposite side of the terrarium. Why does this living diorama need a second bank? You will find out a little later. To build the bridge, I am drawing long strips on another sheet of plastic. Each strip is about half a centimeter wide and at least 30 centimeters long. Then, all of these strips need to be cut as evenly as possible. Next, I draw and cut out the main base of the bridge, which will become the walkway. It is approximately 5 centimeters wide, giving the cockroaches enough room to cross comfortably. The long strips are glued along the base to create one reinforced structure, just as shown here. This support prevents the bridge from bending or sagging under its own weight. And once again, we need to cut many smaller plastic strips. These pieces will become the vertical posts along both sides of the bridge. When they are installed at regular intervals, the structure finally begins to look like a real miniature bridge. This is what the finished bridge looks like. Now it needs to be painted. While the paint is drying, we can begin preparing the terrarium. Inside a large aquarium, I am placing 2 red bricks. They will support the bridge and create raised areas on both sides. I temporarily place the bridge on top to calculate the correct distance between the bricks. Then I add dividers made from the same foamed PVC plastic. These barriers will help keep the soil on the sides separate from the stones in the center. Now both sides of the aquarium can be filled with nutrient-rich soil. The soil is not only decorative. Later, it will allow us to add living plants and turn one side of the terrarium into a more natural environment. The space in the center is filled with small white stones. According to the design, this area represents the bed of a river that is completely dried up. Finally, the bridge can be placed in its permanent position, and now the project is beginning to come together. The miniature village will stand on one bank, while the bridge leads across the dry riverbed to the opposite side. Before arranging the houses, I need to prepare their interiors. From the original egg trays, I am cutting out several individual pockets and placing one inside each house. The rough cardboard helps the cockroaches grip the surface with their feet and also absorbs small amounts of extra moisture. Most importantly, it gives them a familiar sheltered surface inside buildings made from smooth plastic. From the outside, the houses are designed to look interesting to us, but inside they still need to feel comfortable for the insects. Now all the buildings can finally be arranged on one side of the terrarium. Some houses are placed close together, while others are turned slightly to make the layout look less artificial. After a little adjustment, the separate buildings finally become a miniature village. The bridge from this village leads to a more natural area on the opposite bank. That side is still empty because I want you to help decide what should grow there. Write your suggestions in the comments below this video. The plant needs to fit inside the available space and be safe for the cockroaches to eat. It could become a tiny garden, a miniature forest, or even a small farm for the residents of this village. And now, after many hours of cutting, sanding, gluing, and painting, it is finally time to introduce the residents. This was the most exciting part of the project for me because I had worked on the village for several days, but there was no guarantee that the cockroaches would actually use it. A house may look comfortable from a human perspective, but the insects would decide for themselves whether the entrances, surfaces, and hiding places worked. At first, the cockroaches began exploring the open spaces between the buildings. Their long antennae constantly touched the ground, the walls, and every unfamiliar object around them. Cockroaches use their antennae to examine their surroundings, so every new surface received a careful inspection. Then several of them discovered the doors. Soon, tiny heads and antennae began appearing in the entrances and windows. Some cockroaches went completely inside, while others remained near the doorway and looked out. Judging by the way they were peeking from their new homes, I think the project can be called a success. But what do you think? Be sure to tell me in the comments how you like this miniature village and what you would change or improve. This cockroach even seems to be showing some kind of happiness. Of course, it is probably just exploring an unfamiliar surface, but from this angle it looks strangely proud of its new home. A little later, I found what looked like a real couple standing together on the bridge. They stayed close to each other for a while, almost as though they had chosen this place for a romantic meeting. Of course, we may simply be interpreting ordinary cockroach behavior through human eyes. But in a miniature village like this, It is difficult not to imagine that every resident has its own tiny story. One by one, more cockroaches began entering the houses, walking between the buildings, and crossing the bridge. The village finally came to life. The cockroaches that could not find an empty house discovered their own apartment buildings inside the two large bricks. The holes and narrow gaps provide even more protected places to hide. From our perspective, they are ordinary bricks, but for a cockroach, each one contains several floors, entrances, tunnels, and rooms. The white stones in the center represent the dried-up riverbed, and the bridge connects the populated village with the empty natural bank. Once plants are added there, the contrast between the two sides should become even more interesting. One side will contain colorful houses and buildings, while the other will become a green environment where the cockroaches can explore and possibly find food. I hope you enjoyed watching this unusual project come together. It started with an ordinary cardboard egg tray and several flat sheets of plastic. But after many hours of work, those simple materials became an entire miniature village with houses, windows, doors, balconies, a bridge, and its own population. If you enjoyed the project, please support the video by leaving a like. And be sure to write in the comments what we should plant on the opposite bank and what else we should add or improve in this village. Perhaps it needs more houses, a town square, streetlights, or even an entirely new district. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.